Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another episode of Star Wars Top 5, the series where we count down something within the Star Wars universe. I'm starting a new topic today. We're going to be looking at galactic conflicts in more detail, and specifically looking at the space battles that defined them. Today specifically, we're going to be counting down the 5 largest battles of the Galactic Civil War. Keep in mind that I said largest, not most important. So the assault on the Death Star, or the Battle of Yavin for example, was an immensely important victory for the Rebel Alliance, but on a grand scale it was relatively small, with only some X-Wings going against the Death Star. For that reason, it's not going to make this list. One other rule that I have for this episode is that the battle has to be before the Battle of Endor. I'm doing that because after that point, it gets kind of complicated when looking at whether the belligerent was actually the New Republic or the Rebel Alliance, and it's kind of hard to actually classify anything after that as the Galactic Civil War. If you guys have any suggestions for future battles you'd like to see examined in depth, make sure to leave a comment down in the comment section, and if they get enough support, I'll get to them eventually. Anyway, on to the list. Number 5 is the Battle of the Death Star. And I know what you're thinking. Eck, I thought you said we're not including the Rebels' attack on the Death Star because it wasn't quite big enough. It is true that despite its importance, the Battle of Yavin was not actually large enough to make this list, but would you believe that that was not the first time the Rebel Alliance attacked the Death Star? An earlier battle is mentioned in the excellent Legends book Death Star. In that, we learn that the Rebel Alliance attacked the Death Star with a Lucrehulk class battlecruiser, one of the old Clone Wars ships, and 500 X-Wing fighters. This battle was an absolute disaster for the Rebel Alliance. The Death Star fired on the Lucrehulk, destroying it in one shot, and the X-Wings were then easily mopped up by Star Destroyers and their TIE fighters. 500 X-Wings is an absolutely huge loss, especially where no real damage was done to either the Death Star or the surrounding Imperial fleet. The Rebel Alliance very rarely operated at this magnitude with a full-scale strike against a military target. They more often just did little hit and runs or little dinky strikes. Very seldomly would you see them commit 500 whole starfighters. Really, for that reason alone, this battle is number 5 on the list. Number 4 is the Battle over Coruscant, and of course Coruscant has seen its fair share of notable battles. This one is special to me because it appears in one of my favorite video games of all time, Shadows of the Empire. However, the actual canonical events for the Battle of Coruscant do differ slightly than what we see in the game. I'll simplify the events of Shadows of the Empire as much as I can. Prince Xizor, who's the leader of a criminal organization known as Black Sun, is trying to replace Darth Vader as the Emperor's right-hand man. In doing so, he attacks the Rebel Alliance and even Luke Skywalker directly, although not by conventional means. He spies on them, he tries to kidnap Luke, he feeds information to the Empire. He does all this while trying to take down Darth Vader personally, partly due to the fact that he occupies the space that Xizor wants to, and also due to the fact that he hates Darth Vader for personal reasons. The events of Shadows of the Empire culminate with an Alliance attack on Xizor's Skyhook, and the Skyhook is essentially a large space station over Coruscant protected by hundreds of Black Sun ships. In the game, Dash Rendar, with the help of Rogue Squadron, fly into the Skyhook and destroy it from the inside, similarly to how the Death Star 2 was destroyed. In the other material, Darth Vader, leading a fleet comprised of his Executor-class Super Star Destroyer and other Imperial II-class Star Destroyers, destroy the Skyhook through conventional means. This isn't really the Empire acting, it's more of Darth Vader operating to protect himself, but it's still a whole lot of force, especially when you have a 3-way battle featuring a heavily armed space station, an Executor-class Super Star Destroyer, various smaller ships including Viper-class starfighters, all over the planet of Coruscant. Although not a traditional battle, this was, in my opinion, the 4th largest battle of the Galactic Civil War. At number 3 is the Battle of Turkana, which saw one of the first appearances of the X-Wing and is really a step up in tonnage from the previous 2 battles on this list. At this point, we also see one of the first appearances of Mon Calamari cruisers, warships which would of course play a very important role in the rest of the Galactic Civil War. The Imperials were also testing out a new ship, the TIE Interceptor. This is the battle that the Empire expected to quite easily win. They brought with them 10 Imperial-class Star Destroyers, which is quite an overwhelming force, and attacked the Rebel Alliance undetected. This battle really came down to starfighters, and the fact that X-Wings and Y-Wings are superior to TIE fighters, even TIE interceptors, and TIE bombers. Hero of the Rebellion Wedge Antilles himself managed to take out a good number of enemy TIE fighters before having to eject from his ship. Still, the combined efforts of him and the rest of the X-Wing and Y-Wing fighters were enough to force the Empire to retreat. Still, although the battle wasn't to the death, 10 Imperial Star Destroyers against 7 Mon Calamari cruisers is a lot of firepower, especially when you look at all of the starfighters that were involved, and for that reason, this battle gets the number 3 spot on this list. Also, some of you old Star Wars gamers might recognize the name Turkana because this battle is the one featured in the introduction for the old X-Wing PC game, which is really a phenomenal Star Wars video game. Number 2 is the Battle of Deep Space Besh, and this one comes from the Star Wars Rebellion line of comics. Those comics are worth reading, but it is kind of weird how muscly everyone is, including even Princess Leia. Anyway, this battle is interesting for a few reasons. The first is that it occurs on the Tingle Arm, which is one of the arms of the Star Wars galaxy, and one that's not really explored very often. Based on the name, I actually wonder whether it is an intergalactic space, perhaps close to the companion Besh galaxy, although admittedly Besh is just Aurebesh for B, the second letter in the alphabet. Another interesting thing about this battle is that the Rebel Alliance makes use of former Separatist ships. Their flagship here is called Rebel 1 and is a Providence-class carrier. On a literary note, in Star Wars Legends, this is something that became more and more common after the release of Revenge of the Sith, and became a really common thread for writers to pick up on in an interesting way to give the Rebel Alliance extra capital ships. All in all, besides for the Providence, the Rebel Alliance also had 2 Mon Calamari cruisers and then a couple of dozen smaller ships. The Imperials attacked with the overwhelming force, including an Executor-class Super Star Destroyer and 18 Imperial Star Destroyers. The Rebel Alliance was betrayed by one of their own. He gave away their location to the Imperial fleet, also attacking the command crew of the Rebel 1, even injuring Princess Leia. He also disabled the Rebels' navigation computer, making it difficult for them to jump away from the battle. He would, however, redeem himself, but not before the Empire attacked, taking out a large portion of the Rebel fleet. It was only due to the quality of the X-Wings and the pilots that flew them that any Rebel ships at all were able to escape. Darth Vader wasn't able to destroy the Alliance once and for all, but he still did serious damage to their fleet. Number 1 is, of course, the Battle of Endor. This was not only the largest battle of the Galactic Civil War, but also a decisive one, which saw the destruction of not only the Death Star 2, but Darth Vader and the Emperor himself. This battle saw the Rebel Alliance throw every single ship they had against the Empire, including over 10 Mon Calamari cruisers, and then dozens of smaller ships. However, perhaps most important to the battle here were the hundreds of starfighters, including Rogue Squadron, which not only helped defend the larger capital ships, but also took down the Executor Dreadnought and the Death Star 2 itself. The Empire, besides for the Executor Super Star Destroyer, had almost 40 other Star Destroyers and various smaller support ships. They also would have fielded thousands of TIE fighters, including advanced models like TIE Defenders, TIE Interceptors, and TIE Bombers. How the Rebel Alliance actually won this battle has been a matter of debate for a very long time, but at least part of the reason was because of the Emperor's death. The Emperor was using battle meditation to help coordinate his forces. After his death, much of the fleet fell into disarray, and even great military minds like Admiral Pelion couldn't stop the madness. The Alliance took advantage of this, destroying the Death Star and after that retreating in full. Really, it's hard to say that the Alliance won the space battle itself. If the two sides were to just fight it out in a traditional sense, the Empire would have obviously won. What the Alliance did do was survive long enough to get strikecraft into the Death Star, to destroy it, and to accomplish all of their main objectives, striking a critical blow to the Empire and leading to its eventual downfall. Of course, this wasn't the end of the Empire. Imperial remnants would exist basically throughout galactic history in some form or another, but this is the moment that I consider to be the end of the Galactic Civil War. After this point, you have basically Imperial remnants fighting against the New Republic, who become the dominant galactic government. Anyway, those are my 5 largest space battles. of the Galactic Civil War, at least in Star Wars Legends. Before I end the video though, I would just like to say that this video is sponsored by you guys, specifically the Patreons who have chosen to support me on patreon.com/EckhartsLadder. I'd like to give a special thanks to all of you. I'm going to put your names up on the screen. Thank you all of you guys. If you would like to join the ranks of those who support me, visit patreon.com/EckhartsLadder. But you know what? You never need to do this. I'm going to be here every day making videos regardless. Thank you so much for watching, guys. As always, this has been EckhartsLadder. May the Force be with you.